Hey everybody, Chase from CN Woodwork here, and Halloween is just around the corner, so we are going to do a simple Halloween lantern project that requires limited tools. What you're going to need for this are a drill, a jigsaw, some protective finish, some wood glue, some twine, and some paint. So let's get started. Alright, we're going to start with some pallet wood that I've been painting on. Depending on the size that you want your lantern, you can really make it any size. You could even put two pieces of wood together to make the front panel, or whatever you feel like doing. We're just going to stick with about these dimensions here. I think that'll make things pretty simple. Okay, now we need to figure out the size that we want to cut these, and I think 8 by 5 right around there. It's probably about a good size. So we'll just mark these out and give them a cut here real quick. Now you're going to cut 4 sides. So we're going to cut it 8 all the way across. And the great thing about this is you don't have to be exact because it's a Halloween project, and all the mistakes you make are going to be character. And what better time of year for character than Halloween. Alright, now we've got all our sides cut. That's pretty much all we need to do to start off. And just a note, when you're dealing with pallet wood, you always want to look, make sure you take all the nails out. There's no metal you're going to run into while you're working your equipment and cause damage to the equipment or yourself. Also, always use your safety glasses even when using a jigsaw, because you never know what can happen. So the next thing we're going to do is we're basically just going to draw out the design we want. But a design I tend to like is just a classic jack-o'-lantern face. So I'm actually just going to draw one on and try to center it. And let's give him a scary mouth. On this side, and do a little nose on him. And on the other side, let's do maybe a little more fun instead of a scary one. Something like that. Now the eyes can be a little bigger. You can adjust it as you go. This is just, a drawing to kind of get you where you need to be on the line. And this next step is when your drill is going to come in. Now most jigsaw blades are probably right around a 1/4 inch, something like that, and that ought to do just fine. So use a 1/4 inch drill bit, or you can use a bigger one if you'd like. And basically you're just going to drill a hole through all these spots that you just drew. And once you got the holes drilled out, let's cut these out. And the way I find it easiest to do this is kind of to cut a hole in the middle, and then just go down and cut all these slats. Now when you get to the sides, you might find it a little hard to turn around, but if you just take a steady angle through the middle, and then we'll come back and clear out this corner, instead of trying to turn around at the corner, then you'll find it a lot easier to make that shape look correct. Alright, now we've pretty much got the mouth cut out. Let's cut out the rest of it, and we'll do the same on the other piece as well. Okay, now we're going to assemble, since we've got both the front and back cut out. Now we're going to assemble the pieces. Now I'm going to use a brad nailer. But you can clamp these together. You want to use waterproof or water resistant wood glue, like Titebond 2 or 3, if you're going to be keeping this outside. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and assemble this. Now all we need to do is a little bit of glue down the edge, and you can do it either way really. I do it with the laps on the outside of the face. You can do it with them on the inside. It's really whatever you prefer. So then all we're going to do is just put this on here, like so, and don't worry about the lines or whatever. It's a Halloween project, so not that big of a deal. And all I'm doing is putting the brads in place, simply to hold this while the glue dries. And then we're going to do the other side the exact same way. As you can see, my board is split, but I'm not too worried about it, because once I get this piece put on, I'm actually just going to clamp it together anyway, and probably let it sit for a little bit until that board just let that board solve itself back together. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a little measurement of the top of this so we can make the top and bottom. Now, because you're using warped wood, it may be a little different from top to bottom, so we're going to cut off about 1/8 of an inch on each side. So we're looking at about 5.5 by 4. So we're going to cut a couple pieces that are 5.5 by 4 out of that same salvaged wood that we were using. Okay, now we've got our pieces cut, and we cut them a little bit small just to make sure they'd fit without having to recut and spend extra time. So we're just going to test fit these in the bottom and the top, make sure everything looks good. If there's a gap, if they're not quite on, don't worry about it. It's not going to matter anyway. So the next step we're going to do is we are going to cut the top and the bottom. It really depends on your preference. I think 1 inch overhang or 3/4 overhang on each side is probably just fine, even less, 1/2 inch, whatever you feel like. So I have another piece from a different pallet that I've had rolling around here for a little bit, and I'm going to use this piece to make the tops and bottoms because I think it's about the right size. I'm just going to go ahead and mark where I think it's going to be, and I'm going to go cut this one off too. Alright, now we've got both the top and bottom cut roughly about 1 inch overhang on each side. It doesn't have to be exact. And now basically what we're going to do is we're just going to take these blocks and we're going to center them. We'll figure out what orientation you want the bottoms and tops in. Like you can see, it's kind of a live edge on this side a little bit that I just didn't want to trim off. And I think I want that to be facing down kind of like this. So I'm going to put it on this side so when I flip it over, it'll fit right on there. And we're basically just going to eyeball this to about where we think it needs to be, and that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to mark the corners real quick, just so I know the orientation for when I put it back down. And we'll take some glue. Stick it on. And we can either clamp it up, or we can just shoot a couple brads into it. And basically the same procedure with the bottom. And the great thing about a lot of this is, unless you get an issue like this where you split the wood, you don't have to wait for any of it to dry if you can just brad nail it together. You don't have to clamp it up or anything. And it makes it pretty simple. So now you've got your bottom and your top, and it's about time for paint. All right, now when you're painting this project, you're going to use flat black paint, just the cheapest dollar paint you can find at your local store. And you're just going to give it a quick even coat. Doesn't even matter if it's even, really. Now another thing is, if you're using wood that's a little more in a little better shape, doesn't have, you know, quite the raised grain or the damage or whatever to make it look rustic, you can always distress the wood to just, you know, with a couple of screwdrivers or a hammer or just light tapping, whatever, and that'll do the trick. So we're going to let these dry for 10-15 minutes, and then we'll do a little bit of sanding on them. Alright guys, we pretty much got it close to done here. The only thing we have left to do is to give it a quick sanding and put the bottom on, and then throw a coat of polyurethane on it, and it'll be done. Now you can just use sandpaper and hand sand it. I'm going to use a palm sander to do mine, just because it makes it a little quicker. You do want to wear a dust mask though, because you don't want to get any of the paint fumes in your lungs. But let's get to it. Alright. This is what I was talking about with the raised grain. See, if the wood was all level and sanded and ready for normal finishing, you wouldn't have this raised grain. So when you sand it, the grain wouldn't pop. So this actually, if you use, you know, salvaged wood, a lot of times it's been wet and stuff, so the grain actually pops really well. So let's go ahead and attach the bottom here real quick. And you can use just regular nails if you wanted to. I'm going to use the brad nailer. And just run a bead of glue on the whole bottom corner here. And when you're nailing, if you're using a brad nailer, you always nail with the piece of wood you're nailing into. If you nail this way, you have a higher chance of it going out one way or another with the nail. Alright, and if you feel like you want to add some twine like this one, if you're trying to hang it or what have you, it's pretty easy to do. All you do is just take the top off here. Take your drill, and you're going to just drill a hole in the side of it. And just try to keep it center with the edges of the wood here. And then you're going to take a drill with a countersink, or a drill in a larger drill bit to countersink it in. And you want to drive the countersink maybe halfway into the wood here. Alright, and then you're going to take the twine, and you're going to kind of figure out where you need to measure it. You're going to be tying 2 double knots in the end of this, and 1 inch here. So basically all you want to do is just get it to fit around the top of this. So you can even put the top on and figure out how long it's going to be and for your purposes. And just give it a cut and tie a knot in one end, double knot in one end. You can even make it a triple knot if you want. And cut the excess off. take a little bit of glue on this end, and this does get messy, so if you want to put gloves on or something, you can do that. Put a little bit of glue on here. All you're going to do is just spin this so you get a nice point, and you can actually push it through this hole. And before we tie the next side up, all you're going to do is just take on the front end of this, where the string is, just put a roll of glue right on the end there, and slide it into that hole. And then you can just take your finger and wipe the excess glue away. And we're basically going to do the same thing on the other side here. So we'll just feed this over the other side. Tie a double knot. And a little bit of glue on the inside of this knot here. And it's not going to take much to hold this in place, so it's not like you need a whole lot of glue. And then once that glue dries, it'll sit in that countersink there, and they won't interrupt the lid from going on the box. So then the lid will go on just like that. And so basically, that's the finished project. It's a good little Halloween project, and they're pretty fun to build. You could think of other designs, and if you have a scroll saw, you can really get fancy. But that's it for now, and I will see you guys next time.